Happy Thursday, friends. Day and a half until the weekend. Thank God. Man, it's been a long week. I guess the week before the holidays starts dragging. First few days went by pretty quick. Monday, Tuesday. Then for some reason, Wednesday and today, it's just dragging, man. I don't know what to do. I hope it's going fast for you, but it is what it is. I hope you're having a good day. We're going to go over the games coming up this weekend. Hard to believe we got this weekend, next weekend. That's it for the season, man. Great college football is over. Championship weekend. I mean, yeah, you got some good games, but man, it's just not a full Saturday slate like, this weekend and next weekend. So, unfortunately, the end is almost here, but it happens every year. And then we'll stay busy in the off season. Basketball, baseball, and get back around to football season again. All right, so before we start, let's get to some news. Got quite a few news items. Oh, and hit that subscribe button wherever it is on your screen so you don't miss anything. Hey, are you a red-blooded American? Do you love your country? Do you throw big-ass barbecues, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day, President's Day, Veterans Day, all those days made for America? Because if you do, if you love your country, then you need to love Michigan. Because Jim Harbaugh says Michigan is America's team. Mississippi State. They fired head coach Zach Arnett after just 11 games. Remember, he took over after Mike Leach passed away. They've lost 6 out of the last 8 games. They are 4-6. They kind of had a promising start. Played good, won some games, and then all of a sudden they just kind of went downhill. Wish they would have given the guy a little more time because, I mean, I guess 3/4 of the season, and then last year, I mean, that's really no way. To me, that's no way to gauge it. So, I don't know. Hope he finds something. Seems like a good guy. Arizona State AD Ray Anderson, he resigns after nearly 10 years. He's stepping away from the AD. He was the one that hired Herm Edwards. When I first heard Herm Edwards was going to Arizona State, I was like, what the hell? But he actually did all right. I mean, he did. He didn't, fight for a conference championship or anything. But I thought he did okay, but people just didn't like him for whatever reason. San Diego State head coach Brady Hoke, he said he's going to retire from coaching after this season. Been around a while, been around to some places. 104 and 91 as a head coach. San Diego State, Michigan, Ball State. Actually, San Diego State, he was there twice. 104 and 91. At least it's a winning record, but hey, congratulations, coach. You earned it. Enjoy your retirement with your grandkids, your kids, or whatever you plan on doing, fishing, hunting. UT head coach Steve Sarkisian says he understands a coaching change at Texas A&M, but questions the timing. He says when you fire a head coach at this point in the season, you are telling the current team, we give up on you. We're only worried about our future. Kind of agree with that. Like Zach Arnett, I always say wait till the end of the season. I mean, I wanted Jimbo out more than anybody in the world probably, but wait till the season's over. I mean, just let him finish out coaching. Your season's not going to get any better. I mean, so, yeah. But hey, I guess that's why I'm sitting here and I'm not on the board of regents at some university. Also, heard something about, I didn't check it because I forgot about it, but Quinn Ewers, he says he's coming back to Texas next year. I think that's what I heard. And if it is what I heard, when does Arch Manning say, screw this, I'm out of here and transfer? I mean, the guy's been sitting there for 2 years now? I'd be wanting to play. So if I was Arch Manning, I'd probably get the hell out of there and go somewhere else because I don't know. Speaking of head coaches getting fired and Texas A&M, reporter asked Oregon head coach Dan Lanning in his press conference about A&M. He says he ain't leaving. He's happy there at Eugene. He ain't leaving. Some other coaching news. This is cool. I like this. Northwestern, they named their intern coach David Braun head coach. They are 5-5 this year. Just need one more win to go to a bowl game. I think they play Purdue here Saturday. We'll go over that here in a minute. But I think they play Purdue. So they got a winnable game there. I'm not sure. I think Illinois who's afterwards? Usually the last game is against Illinois. But they may have already played Illinois. But anyway, this is awesome for him. Great for Northwestern because when all that stuff fell back in July with Pat Fitzgerald, I said, you know what? They ain't gonna win the game. I figure right now they'd be 0-10, maybe 1-9, 2-8 if they got lucky. But he's got them at 5-5, just one win away from a bowl game. So, congratulations to him, man. What was a mess back in the summer, still a mess. You've pulled them out of it and having a great season. So, congratulations, David Braun. You got the head coaching job there at Northwestern. That place is tough, being a high academic, and I think are they a private school? I think they're a private school also. All right, so let's go over some games we had the last few days. Tuesday, Northern Illinois beat Western Michigan. Toledo, they beat Bowling Green by 1 point to move to 10-1. Tough fought victory, but they got there to 10-1. Eastern Michigan beat Akron. On Wednesday, Miami of Ohio, they moved to 9-2. They beat Buffalo. Ohio, they moved to 8-3. They beat Central Michigan. Tonight, 6 p.m. ESPN, you got 6-4 Boston College versus 2-8 Pitt. Boston College, great turnaround they've done this year. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. ESPN 2, South Florida versus 7-3 UTSA. 9:30 on FS1, Colorado versus Washington State. Both are 4-6. Hey, it's late night football. Late night football on a Friday night. So, yeah. All right, so Saturday, 11 a.m. on Fox. Undefeated Michigan goes to 6-4 Maryland. Talua, he's got better numbers than McCarthy in passing yards and touchdowns, but I don't know, man. It's going to be a tough game for Maryland. Also, 11 ABC, 9-1 Louisville, 6-4 Miami. These two teams are kind of even in rushing and passing. BTN Network, 11 a.m. Michigan State at Indiana. Both are 3-7. Michigan State, well, that's another program in turmoil like Northwestern's been in. Boy, they've got to get it turned around this offseason. In Indiana, I really thought Indiana would be better. I really thought they'd be going to a bowl game this year, but it's like, what was it, their defense, I think? Their defense is good, but the offense just isn't there. It's crazy. Here we go. 11 a.m. on BTN also. 5-5 Northwestern versus 3-7 Purdue. Purdue does have the better rushing and passing yardage, but not by much. And Northwestern's playing great. They could get that bowl eligible victory on Saturday. I think they're playing there in Evanston too. 11 on FS1, 6-4 Rutgers versus 8-2 Penn State. Even in the rushing game, but Penn State is better in the passing game. 11 a.m. SEC Network, 7-3 Chattanooga versus 9-1 Alabama. Bama's the better rushing team, but Chattanooga is actually a better passing game. Alabama always does this. They always play a cupcake right there in the middle of November. Why? I don't know. 11 a.m. SEC Network, 3-7 or 2-8. I'm sorry, Louisiana Monroe versus 8-2 Ole Miss. Ole Miss has a better rushing and passing attack. 11 a.m. SEC Network, 3-7 Southern Miss versus 4-6 Mississippi State. I didn't catch who was taking over for Zach Arnett, but 4-6. Getting to a bowl game is not out of the question, but they do play Ole Miss next week. So, I just don't think they're going to win that game. So, hey, Abilene Christian get a win here. Finish 5-6, 11 SEC Network, 5-5 Abilene Christian versus good old Texas A&M at 6-4. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about A&M this year. 11 o'clock on ESPN, 8-2 Oklahoma versus 5-5 BYU. Really thought BYU would be better than they are this year. They only average 300 yards a game. That's crazy. 11 CBS Sports, 7-3 Coastal Carolina versus 4-6 Army. This might be the 11 o'clock game here. ESPN 2. 8-2 SMU versus 8-2 Memphis. That might be the morning game there. SMU's Preston Stone, 2,596 passing yards, 23 touchdowns. SMU does have the slightly better rushing game. Memphis, Seth Hennigan, 2,864 passing yards, 22 touchdowns. These two teams are pretty much even in everything else. Penalties, first downs, total yards, all that stuff. So that might be the morning game to watch. 11 ESPN News, 2-8 East Carolina versus 4-5 Navy. 11 a.m. TV, none, which 2-8 Sacred Heart versus 1-9 UConn. You can see why it's not on TV, but there are diehard Sacred Heart UConn fans who do want to see their team. 11 ESPN Plus, 9-1 Tulane versus 4-6 Florida Atlantic. 12 noon ESPN Plus, 3-7 UMass versus 10-0 Liberty. Look at Liberty going undefeated. 1 p.m. ESPN Plus, 1-9 Kent State versus 3-7 Ball State. 1 p.m. on the Spec Network, I'm not sure. 4-7 Hawaii versus 6-4 Wyoming. Wyoming building momentum. They've had a good offense all year. It's just they can't score enough points to win. Defense has slacked a little bit. Wyoming started off on fire. Beat Texas Tech. Gave Texas a hell of a game. And some other teams, they've kind of fallen off a little bit. But, man, they could have eight. They could go 8-4 to have a great season this year. 1 p.m. ESPN Plus. UTEP versus Middle Tennessee. Both 3-7. 1 p.m. ESPN Plus. 6-4 App State versus 10-0 James Madison. 1 p.m. ESPN Plus, 3-8 Louisiana Tech versus 7-3 Jacksonville State. 1 p.m. ESPN Plus, 4-6 Rice versus 3-7 Charlotte. I take an interest in Rice because they're right down the road. I go to a couple of their games each year. Man, they've got to win out to get to that bowl game. They were looking great at the beginning of the season, and they've kind of faded off too. 1:30 p.m. ESPN Plus, 4-7 Cincinnati versus 6-4 West Virginia. West Virginia's kind of fallen off a little bit. 1:30 Pac-12 Network, 7-3 Utah versus 7-3 Arizona. Arizona, what a great turnaround they have had. Man, they've had some good games this year, close games too for some of these top teams. Utah's got the better rushing. Arizona has better in the passing game. But Utah's offense is not as productive as Arizona's. And Arizona, like I said, close games. They lost to Washington by 6. Lost to Mississippi State. Still wondering how they lost that game. USC, it's like looking at Mississippi State and USC, how they lose those games. I mean, it's just crazy. All right, 2 p.m. CW Network, 6-4 Duke versus 2-8 Virginia. 2 p.m. ESPN Plus, 6-4 Texas State versus 5-5 Arkansas State. 2 p.m. Mountain West Network, 2-8 Nevada versus 4-6 Colorado State. 2 p.m. ESPN Plus, North Texas versus Tulsa, both are 3-7. 2 p.m. ESPN Plus, Temple versus UAB, both are 3-7. 2:30 p.m. ESPN 8-2 North Carolina versus 6-4 Clemson. Tar Heels, they got the better rushing and passing, and they actually average 120 more yards, total yards a game than Clemson does. 2:30 p.m. ACC Network, 7-3 North Carolina State versus 5-5 Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech actually has the better passing and rushing game. Virginia Tech, that's a team that needs to get things turned around back to the Frank Beamer days because they've just been falling off since then. Let's see, 2:30 p.m. FS1, 5-5 Illinois versus 8-2 Iowa. Illinois has got the slightly better rushing game in this one. Way better passing game than Iowa. I think we've all seen that. 2:30 ABC. This game has lost a lot of luster this year. It's always a big game every year, but this year I don't care about it, but people do. 6-4 UCLA versus 7-4 USC. So Battle of LA. Like I said, usually every year it means something, but it does to the fans. But 2:30 CBS. Undefeated Georgia versus 7-3 Tennessee. Actually, Tennessee's got a better rushing game than Georgia does. That's crazy. You figured Georgia was balanced all the way across the offense? Not so much. Georgia, a better passing game. Tennessee has 710 yards of penalties this year. That's been killing them. 2:30 ESPN Plus, 3-7 Baylor at 4-6 TCU. 2:30 CBS Sports, 8-2 UNLV and 8-2 Air Force. Man, that's a good matchup there. you'll probably be watching something else, but keep an eye on that score. Put it on the pad or your phone or something. Those are two really good Mountain West teams. Let's see. UNLV, way better passing game, but Air Force has the better rushing game. Yeah, I think they're playing in Colorado Springs, too. 2:30 NBC, 4-6 Wake Forest versus 7-3 Notre Dame. Sam Hartman goes up against his old team. 2:30 on the NFL Network, 5-5 Louisiana at 8-2 Troy. 2:30 ESPN Plus, Sam Houston versus Western Kentucky. Sam Houston won their second game. They're 2-8. Western Kentucky 5-5. They used to be a lot better than that. 3 p.m. BTN 5-5 Minnesota versus 10-0 Ohio State. Minnesota. I would not expect them to be 5-5. I thought it'd be a lot better this year. 3 p.m. on Fox, 9-1 Oregon versus 3-7 Arizona State, whose AD just stepped down. Maybe that'll give them some inspiration to win. 3 p.m. SEC Network, 8-3 New Mexico State versus 6-4 Auburn. They are even in the rushing and the passing game. Could there be an upset here? Because New Mexico State going for their second consecutive bowl game. They've got it. But they're 8-3. They're in the Conference USA Championship game. They are on a roll. Keep an eye on it, man. You never know. They might go in there to Auburn and beat them. I mean, Auburn's not Auburn. We all know that. And New Mexico State, they're playing good football. So keep an eye on that one. 3 p.m. ESPN2, 7-3 Oklahoma State versus 4-6 Houston. Don't know what happened to Oklahoma State. They started off reverse what they usually do. They were flat at the beginning, and then they just went on a tear uphill, and then they ran into Central Florida, and man, Central Florida just shut them down all over the place. So, but hey, they can still go 9-3, have a good season. 4 p.m. FS2, Central Florida versus Texas Tech, both 5-5. 4 p.m. ESPN Plus, Marshall versus South Alabama, they're both 5-5. 5 p.m. ESPN Plus, 4-6 Old Dominion versus 6-4 Georgia Southern. Was it Georgia Southern to beat Oklahoma State? They went into Stillwater. Is Georgia Southern or Georgia State 1-2? I forget. That was a few weeks ago. 5:30 on the CW. 3-7 North Alabama versus 10-0 Florida State. 5:30 on the Pac-12 Network. 4-6 Cal versus 3-7 Stanford. Don't know if the band will be on the field this year. We'll see. 6 p.m. on FS1, 7-3 Kansas State versus 7-3 Kansas. They think they call it the Battle of the Sunflower State. I think good rivalry game. Even when Kansas is horrible, they still play a hell of a game against Kansas State in this rivalry game. These teams are even in passing, rushing, and penalties. How many penalties they've gotten this year? It's usually a pretty good game. 6 p.m. CBS Sports, Boise State versus Utah, both 5-5. Utah State, 5-5. Crazy, both those teams are 5-5. They've been really good the last few years. 6:30 on ESPN, 5-5 Florida versus 8-2 Missouri. 6:30 on NBC, Nebraska versus Wisconsin, both are 5-5. Can't believe Wisconsin's 5-5. Nebraska, I can believe because they're starting to build their program up, but man, Wisconsin with Luke Fickell, and they were going to start that air raid this year. Man, it just has not worked out. Okay, here we go. 6:30 ABC. 10-0 Washington versus 8-2 Oregon State. Oregon State has better rushing game. Washington has a better passing game. We've all seen that. Oregon State tends to play Washington pretty tough. They're playing in Corvallis. And some of you old timers like me, remember 2000? Rick Neuheisel, the coach of Washington, they were undefeated. People were talking about them getting back to the BCS national championship game. They go to Oregon, or they play Oregon State. Oregon State beats them and derails that whole national championship thing. They still went to the Rose Bowl, won the Rose Bowl, but Oregon State is what derailed their national championship hopes. Man, we've all seen Washington's defense. We're just all waiting for them to have a bad game because they're decent, but they're not good. We're just waiting for them to get beat by somebody. Keep an eye on it. I hope not, because I'm a Washington fan. But, man, keep an eye on this one. You never know. Oregon State might jump up and bite them again, like they did 23 years ago. 6:30 SEC Network, 6-4 Kentucky versus 4-6 South Carolina. 6:30 ESPNU, 4-6 FIU versus 3-7 Arkansas. 7 p.m. ACC Network, Syracuse versus Georgia Tech. Both are 5-5. 7 p.m. on Fox, 9-1 Texas versus 6-4 Iowa State. UT is obviously better at rushing and passing, but remember, I don't know what it is about Ames, Iowa. The teams go up there that should win and they lose. Moreover, the last several years, this year, Iowa State's down, but still, night game in Ames, Iowa, I don't know what the deal is, man. People tend to go up there and lose, so keep an eye on that score. 7 p.m. ESPN2, 6-4 Georgia State versus 7-3 LSU. 9:30 CBS Sports, 3-7 San Diego State versus 5-5 San Jose State. And your late game, 9:30 on Fox Sports 1, 3-7 New Mexico versus 8-2 Fresno State. Hey, it's the late game. It's 9:30, so I'll watch it. I mean, I know Fresno State's probably going to beat them bad, but I'll watch it anyway. All right, the FCS playoff picture is taking shape. Let's get to some of these games that are coming up. Not many. There's like 1 or 2 on TV. The rest are on ESPN Plus and stuff. So, all right, let's see here. We already mentioned this one. 11 a.m. SEC Network, 7-3 Chattanooga at 9-1 Alabama. We said Chattanooga's got the better passing game, and they average more total yards than Alabama. Not saying Chattanooga's going to Tuscaloosa and beat them, but they could give them a heck of a game. So, 11 a.m. ESPNU, 8-1 Harvard versus 6-3 Yale. 11 a.m. ESPN Plus, 8-2 Lafayette at 2-8 Lehigh. 11 a.m. on the Flow, Drake versus Butler. Both are 7-3. Drake better passing, Butler is better rushing game. 11 a.m. ESPN Plus, 7-3 Western Carolina versus 4-6 VMI. 11 a.m. ESPN Plus, 9-1 Furman at 1-9 Wofford. 12 noon ESPN Plus, 4-5 Princeton at 6-3 Penn. 12 p.m. Flow Network, Villanova versus Delaware. Both are 8-2. They are pretty even in all the categories: rushing, passing, total yards, penalties, all that. So if you're jonesing to watch a game on ESPN Plus, that one could be the game you want to see. 12 p.m. or not ESPN Plus, Flow. I'm sorry, Flow. I think I've watched a game on Flow before. It's a streaming or a website or something. Let's see. 12 p.m. Flow. Villanova versus Delaware. We just said that one. 7-3 Richmond versus 6-4 William and Mary. 12 p.m. ESPN Plus, 8-2 Tennessee Martin versus 5-5 Samford. 12 p.m. on Flow, 4-6 Monmouth versus 8-3 Albany. 1 p.m. ESPN Plus. Why this game isn't on TV? Somewhere, some channel has to carry it. 8-2 Montana State versus 9-1 Montana. Rivalry game. These teams go at it every year. Both they're pretty even in the passing game. Montana State's got the better rushing game, and they average more total yards than the Grizzlies. Why that one's not? I don't know. Sometimes it's just crazy. 1 p.m. ESPN Plus, 8-2 South Dakota versus 0-10 Western Illinois. 1 p.m. ESPN Plus, 7-3 Valparaiso versus 7-3 St. Thomas. 1 p.m. ESPN Plus, 1-9 Delaware State versus 8-2 North Carolina Central. 2 p.m. ESPN Plus, 6-4 Alcorn State versus 7-3 Jackson State. 2 p.m. ESPN Plus, 6-3 Alabama State versus 5-5 Prairie View A&M. 2 p.m. ESPN Plus, 7-3 Sacramento State versus 6-4 UC Davis. 2 p.m. ESPN Plus, 4-6 Missouri State versus 10-0 South Dakota State. Jackrabbits look like they're going to run right to the championship game again. 2 p.m. ESPN Plus, 7-2 Incarnate Word versus 5-4 Houston Christian. 2:30 ESPNU. 3-7 Bethane Cookman versus 9-1 Florida A&M. Why don't y'all put the Montana game on there? I don't know. 4 p.m. ESPN Plus, 7-3 North Dakota State. Bison, who used to be on top of the FCS world, South Dakota State and Montana State have kind of taken over that. But they play 6-4 Northern Iowa. 6 p.m. ESPN Plus, 3-7 Idaho State versus 7-3 Idaho. I don't know what they call that rivalry, but rivalry now, Idaho. And 6 p.m. ESPN Plus, 3-7 Dayton versus 7-3 Davidson. Lots more FCS games than that on, but we're just concentrating on the ones that have playoff hopes. All right, so that's it, man. Y'all have a good day. Like I said, day and a half till the weekend comes. Thank God. We'll be back Monday or Tuesday to wrap up what happened this coming weekend. Meantime, y'all stay safe, enjoy football, stay busy, and we'll see you next time.